Hey guys, Guy78 here. On this episode of How to Do More Damage, we're going to be covering Amara without guns. So, a lot of action skills and non-gun stuff. So, you want to learn how to get Amara to look like this and just crank out really high damage by pressing a few buttons and not really needing to aim. Or you just want to throw out an action skill on a gun build and do a lot of damage. Well, there's more like it. Pay attention and you too can do this. So when Amara wants to deal damage with things that aren't normal guns, she can throw out a lot of damage if it's related to her skills. Her action skills are some of the most efficient damage outlets in the game, and even ties that bind, like for gun builds, it's just an action skill built in disguise, but usually just pressing F in the direction of the enemies does more damage. She's not as proficient with grenades, but she has stuff that gets action skill damage and scaling. And for her relevant boost for that would be V2 for her action skill damage annoyance that you can get on a gun. These are V2, so you don't really even need a Guardian Angel. You saw Splash, Elemental, skill damage. Do harm is a huge deal for this, and Laid Bare. Kind of the same stuff you saw on a gun build. Do note, only her actual action skills and for some reason Ice Spikers proc Laid Bare. Ice Spikers I'll talk about in the next Amara episode. So here we have our action skill formula. Flare has its own section. Body and Mind and Free the Soul are also skill damage, and there's the boost they get, the same stuff that you've already seen, mayhem scaling and whatnot. So another example of using Amara's skill damage scaling would be something like Body and Mind with the Face Puncher. And I just have Splash, Action Skill, Elemental damage, all that stuff, but most of the damage is coming from Do Harm here. Body and Mind doesn't get any of her Action Skill V2, but it does get Underneath Throw. And it's this skill. So to calculate this damage, you take that damage times 31, because I'm on Mayhem 10, and then throw in all the other bullshit. And so I just keep up my rush just to get some do harm going and just get a kill, and it's ready to go. And it has no problem really just nuking everything. That thing's already dead and I didn't even notice. It's also getting splash radius. Any bonus elements that apply to it just don't get splash. And then here's Tandava and the Stinger. Don't forget I'm wearing a Stinger too, for the extra funny melee Nova. And then this just does more damage than using normal guns, because you can just like, bam, it's dead. 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 It's getting Groundbreaker because I'm using a Face Puncher. Fish. Dead. I missed, but dead. Just dead. It's that simple. Ball is getting its own section because its formula is slightly weirder. Basically, Flare hits different. Really hard. Really hard. It's ridiculous. And for the Flare variants that you actually hit, so the normal one and Shooting Star, the way the damage stacks when you melee it is basically 15% per hit times your melee modifier from your boosts, like the Psycho Stabber, times melee mayhem. Per hit, the static charge counts as 2 hits at a time, and it can take up to 5 hits. So when you hit it 5 times, it explodes. And you basically take the card damage and scale it by this number, and then you apply all the rest of the formula. To show this in this clip, I actually have no skill points, just passives and whatever the class mod gives me. And also Annoyance in the Psycho Stabber. And I throw out the ball and I just hit it twice with the static charge. That counts as 4 hits, and you can see it just ruins Sarah's day. It's insane. And all my melee passives and boosts are just going into it. Now let's look at Light Fantastic. So Light Fantastic is this action skill, and I'm pretty sure the way it works is that the stacking is just 15% rather than times your melee modifier, and it tracks whatever you shoot with the bullet. I do need to test what it does, but let's just look how it does. Just chucking out some of these to get build up rush and throw it out. Holding a GA for the stat stick and hopefully start kicking it. Yep, there we go. It's picking up momentum and it just one-shots everything that it touches. Look at that. You know, a gun game, by the way. You know, this is a gun game. You know, surely. Throw one over here. Love. This is great. It does get stuck a lot. Just throwing out a few more. And hopefully now you see how to simply do more damage. It's that simple. And another thing you should notice down there, my cooldown is fast. Which is going to bring us to Expedite. Expedite is Amara's most important augment. Pretty much every build that, if you have the purple tree, every build uses, you always want to grab Expedite. It's the most important thing for her damage output, not because of raw damage, but because of uptime. So if we take a look at my pace cast cooldown, it's kind of long. But if I get some skill damage kills, it's already just 3 seconds. So I can just throw them out, you know, which means more damage. Not bigger number, but more consistent damage. You're doing more damage. And if you're asking about what I'm doing right now, that's Pestilence. This is Pestilence Amara. The Pestilence Nova does skill damage, and well, you can't even see how many do harm stacks I have. But if you just want to clear content fast, well, here you go. More on Expedite. Expedite good. Really good. You need Expedite pretty much, almost. So the gameplay loop around Amara looks something like skill strong, cooldown bad. Strong skill, more cooldown. And an important part of doing more damage is actually being able to dish it out. You can have the biggest number in the game, something like Hustler Eraser proccing 3 times in a row. But that's not very feasible. While something like Short Fuse is less damage, it's still the biggest damage number in the game, but it's not RNG, it's instant. And Amara has the same thing. You can do a lot of damage with your skills, and Expedite makes it so you can actually spam it. It's not the most damage in the game, but she has really easy ways of throwing out a lot of damage. And this is how you do it. You need to be efficient, not just strong. And now, back to Amara's skills. Hey, remember everything I said about Hollow Point being dumb and getting your overkill and giving it mayhem scaling? Yeah, she has that, but again, and that's Remnant. So, anytime you get a kill with a gun or an action skill, it spawns a Remnant orb with the base damage, but 99.99, so many nines of that damage comes from overkill damage, which is added to the base damage, and then gets action skill, mayhem scaling, splash, all this garbage, and your skill damage boosts, which do harm at 5 out of 5, gives you like 600%. And it gets on Grenade Throw V2, and it can crit. I wouldn't count on it, but I already showed you what Remnant looks like with Ties That Bind, but I think I'll just show you what it looks like when you use just an action skill. So here we're going up against True Hag. Should be the largest HP pool in the game. Just 10 out of a nearby ad, which I didn't because this game sucks. And then, yeah, the usual. I should be able to just Groundbreaker that, I think. Somewhat. Not a whole lot. So we need to do it again. That should do it. Yeah. To finish off this video, I want to talk about the Pestilence. So anyone can really do Pestilence Nova spam. It's really strong on Zane and Amara that I know, but anyone can do it. But this gun was so clearly designed for Amara. It's you get the driver in the same fucking place. Like the guy next to the pestilence source drops this thing. It's skill damage, and Amara can turn off the radiation's bad matchups with Purple Tree. Uh, so to describe the damage done by this thing, I don't know anyone who actually knows the base damage of the Pestilence Nova. Doesn't really matter, but you can see it scales with gun damage and just basically everything in the game. You're shoving so much formula into this thing, and it's best used by Amara because the driver is giving you hundreds of percent of gun damage, and then you get your do harm for hundreds of percent of skill damage. She has splash, she has elemental, and then you can just pair it with, you know, elemental projectors, a ton of other garbage. It procs expedite, so you can spam more Tandava. For Blade Bear, she has a lot of swap speed if you want to do that to like spam it faster, and she has a better melee animation, which is slightly faster, I think, off Find Your Center, which means you're spamming these Novas faster. Uh, it's really funny. I've instantly killed trials at this thing. You gotta try it at least once. You can't see anything, but it doesn't matter. Just get a ton of splash radius and you're gold.